Hi everybody, hope you're doing well. Um, Linus has done part 3, and I suspect you Kool-Aid drinkers aren't very happy this morning. So we're going to go over it. Oh, and by the way, today is Tim Pool Day, one of my favorite YouTube personalities. I just thought we'd give him hats off to Tim Pool for all the great work he's been doing. Anyway, let's view the video.
It is buried under this town, so come on.
Honestly, some of my dumbest problems have been caused by my default file manager, Dolphin. Among other things, it does not allow the user to copy anything into a folder that requires administrative privileges, with no obvious way to override it in the GUI. And I've run into this twice so far. Adding insult to injury, the community responses to this user who shared my concern that not everyone wants to copy files using the terminal, and that Linux should allow the user to do what they want to do with their computer, were some of the most painfully condescending and stubborn things that I've had the displeasure of reading throughout this challenge.
So painfully condescending and disturbing. The problem is you guys are drinking too much of your own Kool-Aid, and you're very arrogant, and you're being called out again, not just by me, by everybody, because everyone sees it. You know, you guys live in this little tiny bubble where you think you're God, and you're not God, and you need to to change that. Linux will never ever become popular under these circumstances. Let's continue to listen.
Now, I lost my link to the tweet, unfortunately, but I saw an interesting criticism of this series that basically accused me and Luke of intentionally smearing Linux and its developers because we were going to come into this with a basic Windows gamer perspective and try to do things the way that they do things. Well, newsflash, guys, that's most people. And if you legitimately, like in your...
That's the problem. It's most people. Those are the people who you will need to make Linux mainstream, and you can't keep pissing them off. You can't keep ripping them off. You can't keep lying to them and cheating. You can't tell everybody you're going to build them a phone with Linux power and not do it.
Your heart of hearts want Linux desktop to grow, you need to accommodate those people.
Exactly.
So you can sit there and go, am I out of touch?
Yes, you are.
No, it's the users who are wrong. But you're literally a meme at that point. The only question is whether you're self-aware or not.
Well,
Apparently
that
not.
depends. I strongly believe.
So, now you're hearing it from Linux, or hearing about Linux from Linus. You've got to change the name of the operating system for that guy. Tough to get. So it's not just me saying it to you. It's everybody who examines your operation says the same thing. You guys are too arrogant, and you're in your own world, and you expect everybody to come to your party. Well, that's not how the world works. You're gonna be out in the cold very soon if you're gonna continue that attitude. Anyway, speaking of poor people who have been hard done by Linux users, and I'm gonna keep the user anonymous, but he kind of almost wrote me a personal letter in a response on one of my older videos, but for some reason it hasn't populated in the video for the public. I don't know what it is with YouTube, but a lot of comments don't get there. So I'm going to read it. Unfortunately, I feel your pain. I purchased my pinephone over a year ago. One fellow named Peter posted that it was working and posted a YouTube video showing it making calls. It wasn't entirely true. Eventually my phone died and would no longer recognize the eMMC or show charging or anything. Simply died. I was ridiculed as to my touting this phone. It was a nightmare, and like you, made my life miserable. Well, I don't know if my life's miserable. I get upset about it, but it passes pretty easy because I don't get mad, I get even. So this guy needs a refund on the shit phone that you guys sold him with the big promise it was going to be a Linux phone and allegedly worked as a phone. I'll be inviting him to join the pinephone action, which we'll be covering a little bit because it's moving ahead now. All right, let's continue reading. Find my small and then the pizza-loving nerd isn't capable of making this phone work. He's a kid that takes money to keep his channel afloat. what makes my blood boil is that we had a great phone, good-looking third-party phones for about 4 years. The Firefox OS phones were fantastic. I had everything one offered. The best one was the FZ10 and the Geeks phone models. The Geeks phone model had an Intel processor, functioned extremely well. I doubt you can find any videos on that device. It was intended only for Japan, sold for $700. Well, I'd never heard of that, but I looked into it. Back in those days, I was enjoying a BlackBerry and wasn't concerned about all this stuff. So I ducked this phone, and I found it something very interesting. Article at cnet.com. Geeks phone reveals Firefox OS for developers. Here's the difference between a real company and pinephone. Geeks phone reveals Firefox OS phones for developers. Mainstream customers need not apply, but programmers who like the openness of Mozilla's browser-based Firefox operating system will soon get a chance to help make it a reality. Do you notice the difference there? They didn't tell anybody that they were going to promise them a Linux-powered pinephone for the end user, people who want security, want to get away from Android and iOS. Did you notice that? They didn't make any false promises they weren't going to keep. They said, stay away, mainstream users. We don't want you right now. That's what pinephone didn't do, because pinephone wanted their money, but they didn't want to give a product. So pay attention. That's how it's supposed to be done. Anyway, so let's read on. And thanks to that user for bringing me in. I had never heard him at that time. I guess I was very happy with my Storm or Thunder. I can't remember what the BlackBerry I had at the time. But it was a great phone, very private phone, very high security too. It made me wonder if maybe BlackBerry was put out of business so that the others could facilitate this spying routine that we're on now. Maybe BlackBerry didn't want to cooperate, and they put them out of business instead, because it was a great phone. Anyway, why in the Sam hell didn't these brainy engineers simply engineer phones that as a Firefox for base for design? Why didn't these so-called experts simply get a Tixon, whatever that is, or a Sailfish phone and use it to make their device? All these devices have an open source OS. In other countries you can buy a device with an operational Linux phone, but not here. I plan my next phone to be a non-Android device. I had to give up waiting for some common sense outfit to make a phone. I think the Librem 5 is ready for consumer use. I've heard differently, so for the price I'd be very careful about that. Without promise of full refund, if dissatisfied would be in order there, I would be very careful about that. I think the whole problem here is not the hardware, it's the Linux community. The arrogance and the Kool-Aid drinking. Even Linus from Tech Tips sees what's going on and calls you out on it, and the products are never going to be any good until you guys have an attitude change, and it had better come pretty soon, because you're going to be left out in the cold. Anyway, he mentions that the Librem phone is priced way too high with a phone with low specs. And he talks about the Pizza Loving Nerd got somebody to buy one for him, because apparently I guess he doesn't have any money. But I don't necessarily agree with that, because if you look at his videos, you'll find he's marketing other things. He's got a little business going there, and his opinion is all biased because he's into it for the money. Look at his commercial about the new Jib Jab or some kind of tablet he's trying to sell now. He's got his own little e-commerce website set up. Well, so anyway, thanks to that user, and you know who you are. I'm not going to mention your name because I don't know if you pulled this post down, because it's not public yet. I don't know why it's not public on the video you posted it to, but I'm going to contact you later and invite you to participate in the pinephone action. And speaking of which, the first step is complete now. Unfortunately, I found that I can only complain to Federal Trade Commission for myself or for one other person. I can't complain for a group. So I need you guys to do me a favor. If we're ever going to make this happen, we've got to flood the place with complaints. We've got to be diligent. We've got to be persistent. So all you have already signed up. I'm going to send you a link to the Federal Trade Commission fraud report page, and please fill it in for me and let me know that you've done it. And we'll fill their inbox with many complaints. And those of you who have not signed up yet, please do and participate in this action, because Pine 64 is going to be very sorry for what they did to us, and we're not going to give up until we get satisfaction, either through ridicule, refunds, or whatever it takes. But the war is on, and I need my army of people who've been screwed by pinephone to raise your hand and make your voice heard. And remember, Sparky says don't buy any pinephone products or Pine 64 products or the pinephone, because they're not good products, and the attitude of the software support people is arrogance, and we're not going to put up with it anymore. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care. And I just want to say one more thing. I really like the way the Geeks phone said mainstream customers need not apply. It really points out how bad the Pine phone propaganda was on the homepage, where they basically promised you something they were never intending to deliver, and then when you try to call them on it, they give you this condescending arrogance in the forum. And you guys are something else. I'm not sure what you are yet, but you're something else. Thanks for watching, everyone.